Good afternoon, fourth grade. We are on chapter 5. They call them lessons, but we're on chapter 5. We're going to stay in the Northeast here, except for now we're going to talk about the life of the Northeast. Before we were talking about mostly about the geography of the Northeast. Now we're going to study where people live and how they live and what they do for a living. Take a look at this population density map taken at night. It's pretty interesting, and you can see the outline of the United States here, and some of the cities in Canada, as well as Mexico and South America here. Check out the United States Northeast. Wow, these places here don't even have any dark spots by them. I bet you can find Milwaukee. Yep, there it is, right along Lake Michigan, and that bigger white spot there, that's Chicago. Well, I bet you can guess what these are out here. New York, Boston, Washington, D.C. That's what the United States looks like from the sky. The cities that give off a lot of light, obviously, have lighter dots on the map. All right, well, let's talk about population density and life in the Northeast. You need your TCI account, or you just watch it on the video. And if you pull out your Monday assignment, it's actually just reading notes. We're going to take these notes as we go in class today. Start with your name. All right, so we're going to read first and then fill in as we go. Define population density, how many people live in rural areas, about how many people live in large urban areas, and then we're going to kind of compare and contrast those. Have you ever seen a photo of the United States taken from space? During the day, you might be able to see physical features like mountains or lakes, but at night you will not be able to see features at all. Instead, you may see many bright dots of lights, and you might see nothing at all. The bright areas are where lots of people live. You see the lights of homes, businesses, streetlights, and other lit objects. People live close together in towns and the cities there. We can say that these areas are heavily populated. The dark areas are where few people live. These are less populated areas, and people live farther apart. What do you see when you look at a photograph of the Northeast region? From space? Do you notice the long, bright area near the coast? This bright area is filled with hundreds of towns and cities where millions of people live. Starting north of Boston and ending south of Washington, D.C., this series of cities stretches more than 400 miles. People sometimes call this Boswash. We'll talk about that plenty of times. But Boswash, the area between Boston and Washington, where so many people live. In this lesson, you will read about people who live in the Northeast. You will learn how the large population affects people's daily lives. All right, number 1, living in the Northeast. First of all, New York City has more than 27 people per square mile. Small towns in the Northeast are much less crowded. You can't even fit 27,000 people in a square mile. You have to stack them on top of each other, and that's why New York has so many skyscrapers. Population density. Here's our definition here. A measure of the average number of people living in one unit of area. Where do people live? Do you live in a big city? Maybe you live in a medium-sized suburb. Maybe you even live in a small town or rural area. Each of these places has different population density. Population density is the measure of how many people live in a given amount of land. It is often shown above the number of people per square mile of land. The word per means for each. A square mile is a square piece of land measuring 1 mile by 1 mile by 1 mile by 1 mile on all 4 sides. That's a square. Population density affects how people live. Many rural areas often have fewer than 1,000 people per square mile. Less than 1,000. How many people live in urban areas? Rural means country. Urban means city. This means that there are on average fewer than 1,000 people living in each square mile of land. Larger areas have more than 1,000 people per square mile. Some urban areas have over 25,000 people. That'd be like if there was one person that lived on your block, or 25,000 people lived on your block. That was a mistake. One person lived on your block, or 2,500 people lived on your block. That's an amazing difference. There are good things about living in both the rural and the urban areas. In small towns, people can get to know each other more easily, and neighbors often help each other. Life can be quiet and peaceful there. Everyone knows everyone. Now that might be a really good thing. Oh yeah, Jenny's sick with cancer, or Bobby broke his leg. Let's take them a meal or help them. And it can also be kind of a little bit annoying. I grew up in a small town, and anytime I got in trouble, everybody in town knew that I was in trouble. So everyone knows everyone. That can kind of be a good thing. Peaceful and quiet. Neighbors help each other. I don't know about your neighborhood, but people in my neighborhood still help each other, and we live in a big city. All right, living in an urban area. There are good things about living in both rural and urban areas. Cities may not seem as friendly as small towns, but cities offer people more choices. If you want to go out to eat in Milwaukee, you can eat at a bazillion different types of restaurants offering lots of different food. The little town I grew up with, we did have a McDonald's, but that was about it. Oh, there was a pizza place, but that was about it. More choices. There may be many places to shop, and restaurants serve food from many places around the world. There are many exciting things to do. We had to go 2 hours if we wanted to go to a zoo. We're here in Milwaukee. There's a zoo right down the block. Okay, so more things to do. I remember in a small town that I grew up, when the first movie theater came to town, and it actually had 3 screens. We thought we died and went to heaven. I moved to Milwaukee, and it seemed like there was a movie theater that had 18 screens and different movies playing all the time. All right, what about some bad things? They don't give us any bad things. We got to come up with our own. What might be bad about living in a rural area? No huge hospitals. If something went wrong, we oftentimes had to travel long distances to get to the hospital. Okay? Not a lot to do. What might be bad about living in urban areas? Unfortunately, especially in Milwaukee, we have high crime. In the news here in Milwaukee, every night it seems like somebody got shot or somebody got murdered or there was a terrible car accident. I remember, I think I was 12 years old when the first person in the town I lived got murdered. It was like the biggest thing ever. One person in 20 years that I lived there got shot. So, of course, there was very, very few people there. So, more crime in the big cities. More traffic. Unless you really like traffic, that's kind of a bummer. More traffic. There's only 3 stoplights in the whole town that I lived in. Here, there seems like there's a stoplight on every corner. Okay, so more traffic, more stoplights. All right, section number 2, our last section here for Monday. It said, reading a population density map. Some maps show the population density of places in the United States. They often show how many people per square mile live in different parts of the nation. Population maps have map keys. Some population maps use colors to represent different numbers of the people per square mile. In the Northeast, population density is very high along the coast. This area is a megalopolis. That's our first definition here. Let's write it down. Megalopolis is a great city. consisting of a string of towns and cities where many people live. Now, we might be considered a megalopolis here. You got Milwaukee, you got Kenosha, you got Racine, you got Waukesha, you got Whitefish Bay. It seems like a whole bunch of these different towns that butt up right against each other, and as it fills in even more, we will become a megalopolis. Not quite as intense as it is out east. The word megalopolis means great city. The megalopolis of Boswash, there it is again, from Boston to Washington, stretches from Massachusetts south through parts of Rhode Island, Connecticut, New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Delaware, and Maryland. Here we go. Here's Boston, and here is where Washington, D.C. is. So this is what they call Boswash here. You notice New York, that's over 3,000 people per square mile. That's huge. Okay? All right. In what 7 states does Boswash include? And let's get those written down here. Hopefully you can see both here. They're right here. Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Connecticut, New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania. I'm going to have to put them underneath here because I wrote so big. Delaware and Maryland. That's half of the Northeast. All right, what 2 states in the Northeast have areas with the lowest population density? So we're going to check out our map now. Red's the highest, yellow's the lowest. Which 2 states have some of that? I see some in central Maine here. You see yellow there. So let's go Maine. And interesting enough, the state of New York, this area of New York here, there isn't a ton of people that live in that area. And what might the population density be so low in these 2 areas? Any ideas? It's not a desert, I'll give you that big hint. It's not a desert. All right. Maybe mountains? Or marshes? Can't build houses on real marshy lowlands. Or forests. Now I know we can cut down trees to build houses, but sometimes we take these areas that are heavily forested and we say you cannot move there, you cannot live there. All right, well, let's take a look. Look at the population density map of the Northeast. What do you notice about the population density of Boswash? Now look at the state of Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine on the map. How is the population density of these states different from Boswash? You notice they're in this lighter color here, which is not very many people. And so those here, yeah, they have some big cities, but not nearly as much as this area here. Okay, this map shows the population density of the Northeast. The map key shows what areas have more people per square mile. All right, guys, we have completed our assignment for today. If you followed along, you may take that and put it back into your Monday folder. We look forward to more social studies tomorrow.